Welcome. This is 28th of October 2022, and we're going to try graphics. And to try graphics, it would be handy if we had our reference because we will always want to have that in our hand. Graphics.pdf. And there it is. You have a paper copy of this, but I'm going to reduce this because it's taking too much space. Now then, I don't know all this stuff. That's why I want to have, you don't have to have this out now. I mean, if this is recording, then I'll post it on our playlist on, Facebook, on YouTube. Come on, coffee. And you can watch it and hit the highlights or whatever and see how we went about doing what we did. But I cheated just a little bit. I went ahead and typed this in. So I already have this in a file called example4 py. Well, got to do the idle thing. idle and file open. It'll be a new file for you when you first type one in. But I started with, where am I going here? Examples. I started with that, and you'll recognize that as the little program there. It's the same thing, but I went ahead and put our documentation. Did you know how Dr. England gets about documentation? You got to put some documentation in. There's all the stuff. It's called example 4, and this is just to try out the graphics library and see whether or not we can navigate our way through the PDF file when we need to. Let's just see what this little program does when we run it. Run module. It spits a red paragraph of death. From graphics import on line, oops, I forgot to show the line numbers. Let me get back over here. Options, show line numbers. Line 9, it doesn't like line 9. Connect to graphics library, that was my comment. From graphics import star. Well, I happen to know why it doesn't like that. It doesn't like that because I don't have the graphics library graphics.py in the same folder as the source code file. All I have in the same folder are the other example programs, if you remember. So somehow or another, I got to get this window to get out of my way so I can get, that's going the wrong direction. There. I'm going to go to the email Dr. England sent me this morning and got several things since then. There they are, graphics files, 2 attachments. This is the graphics PDF that I've already opened, but I'm going to download that so that that's in the same folder with the examples. Just get everything all in one place. You don't have to have a separate folder for your graphics if you don't want to. I've got mine in examples. I'll save the graphics PDF and also the graphics.py. So there, they're all one big happy family now, all in the examples folder together. There's the ex4.py, which I just opened, and here are the 2 graphics files. This one is the one that's open right here, so you've seen that. This one, right click, and I'll open that with Notepad since I already got an idle window open. That's really faint orange stuff there. Description, 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 and then regular comments, 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 comments. This is the source code for the graphics library written in Python. And look at that. The first 161 lines are nothing but comments. So before you start thinking I'm unreasonable in all the comments I expect at the top, that little 4 or 5 line paragraph, look at that. This is what real world people do in Python when they're writing libraries. And holy moly! No, I'm not going to require you to read through this and understand all of it. The point is, they have, fortunately for us, they have buried all these hideous technical details down here in this library. So all we have to do, go away, enough scaring us. All we have to do is know how to use it. All we have to do is know how to get a mouse by calling get mouse, check a mouse by using the get check mouse method. These are all methods on GraphWin objects and graphics objects. These are all methods on graphics objects, and here's point methods and so forth. The code for all this is in python.py, so if you want to see how they did it, you could look, but you don't have to know it to be able to use it, thank goodness. Now, after all of that, do I still need all of that? I don't need you anymore. I still need you. Stick around. There, back to the idle window. Now let's see if it'll run. Run module. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. There's our graphics window with a circle in it. Oh my goodness, what powerful graphics capabilities. So we've seen the little circle, and we got a gigantic red paragraph of death. Now, this one you will see if you do what I just did, which was, let me show you how to replicate that. I'm going to run, it's already saved, run module. Here's what I did. I clicked on the X. In general, on your graphics programs, you don't want to do that. It likes to exit on its own, separate from Python. I'll show you how to avoid the red paragraph of death. Look at this. Pause for a click in the window. It's waiting for me to click the mouse inside the graphics window. And then it will close the window, clean up the mess, do all the cleanup work, and then it will exit Python. So here's my mistake. Run module. Instead of clicking on the X, I'll just click anywhere inside this window. There. No harm, no foul, no big paragraph of death, and everybody's happy. So now I can get it out of the way. Let's see what's going on here. I've labeled this from graphics import star, and I've labeled that with a comment. That's how we connect to the graphics library. So if it starts telling you, even though if you have graphics.py in the same folder as your source code file, if it tells you it doesn't know what any of these things are, the circles and the windows and everything, double check and make sure that you've included that line. All the graphics programs you have to type in from graphics import star. Import just means pull in those object types from the module. I could have said from graphics import circle and then have a separate line from graphics import rectangle. Star is a wildcard. It's not a gigantic library, so we just say from graphics import everything. Give me it all. I got points, I got circles, I got rectangles, I got all the stuff. So that way you don't have to pick and choose which ones you're going to use. Then, def main, there's a little dip into familiarity. This my circle, that's a little odd. I don't recall seeing that print anywhere. No, that's because their window, for some silly reason, in their example program where they're illustrating graphics, the window is so tiny that you can't see anything. What on earth are these three things? That's an excellent question, Dr. Engel. Let's see if we can find that out. That's a GraphWin. We're making a GraphWin object and storing the GraphWin object in a variable called win. Mental note. This makes a GraphWin object using those are called parameters. We passed in 3 parameters, a string and then 2 hundreds. So apparently it's expecting me to give it a string and 2 numbers to make a GraphWin, and I'm putting the GraphWin in a variable called win. Back to the reference. The graphics objects, no, this is a GraphWin object. So here in the PDF file, look at this. 1, 2, 3 things. It wants a title, a width, and a height. Constructs a new graphics window for drawing on the screen. Parameters are optional. The default is graphics window and the default size is 200 by 200. Here's an example. Here's where they make a graphics window. They still call it win. And the GraphWin is the type of object. It's got a title, investment growth, and then a width of 640 and a height of 480. And that's all they give us for it. But that is enough. That's enough to jumpstart some experimentation here. Here's what I think is going on. I think their window is so tiny it doesn't have room to label the window my circle. How can I test that? Well, knock yourself out with the experimentation here. Remember, this is an experimental lab course. So I'm going to make that 200 instead of 100 and run her through the machine again. Come on. Run module. Okay. No, it's still not wide enough. Back to the drawing board. I want to see my circle on there. How about 300? Oh, no, 500. I'll go for broke. Run module. My circle, my little circle. That's a tiny little circle. So, I'll click on the window so it doesn't yell at me. And this thing, it still shows the console window. You could still ask the user for input and read input down here. You could still do print statements and they would show up in this window. So now we have 2 output windows. One of them shows the graphics stuff that's going on. The other one shows this text dialogue back and forth. Type me a number and I'll print you an answer and all that kind of stuff. I think if I change this, it will change the title, wouldn't you guess? There's one way to find out. I can't find the arrow keys in the dark. My little circle. We'll try that and see. Run module. Okay. It says my little circle. Can you read that? Man, I can barely read it on my screen. I am not happy with that window. I didn't want an elongated horizontal window, so I need to make it taller. So there and there. To make it taller, what can I do? Do I change the 500 or the 100, or do I change my little circle? The 100. The 100 is the height. I'm going to change that to 345. Why not? I'm just experimenting with numbers here. Then run it again. You'll notice I'm running it after every single little thing I do because I want to make sure it has the effect I expect before I do something else. That is a nice rectangular picture frame kind of window, isn't it? Now then, everybody okay so far? We got a tiny little circle and a much more satisfying, larger graphics window. This is our drawing surface. Any graphic stuff we do is going to show up in a GraphWin. That's just how they've set up the library. So when I click and it makes it go away, and I click and I make that go away, let's say, well, now here's something that is not in the documentation that makes me uncomfortable, and I've learned to do this my own way. This business with the circle here, notice they've got parentheses out the wazoo. If you look at the circle object, which is a special kind of graphics object, to make a circle object, you need a center point and a radius. You only need two things. And I don't like how complicated this looks. This looks like it's all kind of things inside things and so forth. That's because they made a point object and sent it to the center point parameter and then separately made a radius of 10. Here's what I prefer instead. And they did the same thing with their example. I wish they wouldn't do that. It's better, in my mind, if I make a separate center point. I'm going to document everything. Make a center point with a capital P. By convention, data types, object types start with a capital letter, but then they're camel cased. So that's why I capitalized point. That is one of the graphics objects and graphics.pdf description. Make a center point for the circle. Circle is also a data type. So this will do exactly the same thing. I'll even call it C point for center point of a circle. C with lowercase c, because this is a variable. I can't write. C point equals point, and they made a point 50-50. And then another comment. Make a circle at the center point. Where else would you make it? Now, watch how it cleans this up. Instead of having point 50-50 right there, I will now have C point. And I just think that's easier to understand. There's two steps here. I make a point, and I'm going to call this circle. C is just too little. C-I-R, C-I-R-C-L-E. I'll just change all the variable names. This won't be win anymore. This will be W. GraphWin has to say the same, point has to say the same, protocol has to say the same, but the variable names are up to me. So now what have I got? I made a graphics window to draw stuff on. I've got a point that I want to be the center of the circle. And notice that I just immediately use that point. That's going to be the center point of the circle at 50-50. See how much more self-explanatory that is than if you try to cram a bunch of stuff into one line. You don't do things just because you can. You do things because ideally they support clarity and simplicity. And that's why I made this a little longer than it was before. And then you got to draw it on the screen. Watch this. I don't want to draw it on the screen. I already made the circle. Comment. Does anybody want to predict what's going to happen if I comment out c.draw? Not a whole heck of a lot. Run module, save it, and run it. Whoops. We get a red paragraph of death. But look at this. There's no circle drawn. It's not doing anything here. When is not defined. Did I mean Ben? No, I did not mean Ben. I meant when. If I'm changing it here, I got to change it everywhere. If it's W here, it's got to be W here. That's just a single letter variable name on my window. I know it's a graphics window. I'll just call it W for window. Do I need to change other C's to circles somewhere? Yeah, I'm eventually going to need to change that to circle. Now, what I was trying to demonstrate, and that's going to be changed to W. What this does is say, circle, I made you with a center point of 50-50, and you're going to have a radius of 10. Now that I've made you, draw yourself on the screen. If I comment that out, the program will still run, but the circle will not draw itself on the screen, or so I claim. Maybe we'll get another red paragraph of death. Wouldn't that be fun? There it is. I don't see any circle, but it's still waiting for the mouse click. Okay. What an enlightening demo that was. All it means is after you make an object, you've got to draw it on the screen. Why don't I say that? Why don't I put my money where my mouth is? Draw the circle in the graphics window. Draw the circle in the graphics window. After we draw the circle in the graphics window, then we might wait for a click in the window. And I'm going to put that like I've got all the other comments for consistency. Pause or mouse click. And I don't need this comment anymore. There. Now, with a comment every line, this ought to be easier to understand. Every line, how about this? Make a graphics window S in which to draw stuff. Make a graphics window, and we made a graphics window called My Little Circle. I made a center point for the circle. I'm going to make a circle. None of those show up on the screen until I tell them to draw themselves. Draw yourself, circle. You know what? I think I can tell this point to draw itself. That goes above and beyond just making a center point for the circle. Draw the point on the screen. Nope. Of course it's on the screen. In the window. There. C point. The reason I think P-O-I-N-T dot draw, because I believe draw is a method on the graphics objects. And remember, the graphics objects is the parent class of all of the more specialized kinds of graphics objects like circle and point and everything. So I hope this works. And to see if it works, I am going to make the mouse stop. How do we make the mouse stop? The mouse stops if we tell it to get mouse. W.getMouse tells the graphics system to wait until somebody clicks the mouse in the window. That just gives me time to see whether or not it drew the point before it goes ahead and does all the circle stuff. So are we ready to roll? Let's see. Run module. Okay. Oh, C point. Yeah, that's probably not defined. You can point and laugh and tell me when I've done a typo if you want. Run module. Again? Missing one required positional argument. Graph when. Draw. Line 22. Line 22. Right here. What's it complaining about? How is that C point dot draw different from this circle dot draw? It doesn't say where to draw it. You got to say, Mother, may I? You got to draw it. We've only got one graphics window. You could open several graphics windows. I don't recommend doing that. We're going to be doing all of the graphics we do in just one. It's like our whiteboard where we're going to draw all this multicolor graphic stuff, but we only need one of those. We just got to remember to use it occasionally. This says point object that I just made with coordinates 50-50. Draw yourself on the window. And now it should have last time, but I messed it up. Man, that is hard to see right there. The cursor is easy to see, but there's the point. Can you see that at all? Then when I click on the mouse, now it's a circle with a little point in the middle of it. And click again and it goes away. Now then, let's say that I don't like the point where it is. What if I want it right smack in the middle? In other words, pretend like this editor window, idle editor, pretend like that's a graphics window. What if I want the circle right smack in the middle here? How could I do that? Instead of center point 50-50, it would need to be what? Do anybody want to guess?
250 and 170 something?
Yeah, 170 something, yeah. What he's doing is taking half of each of those. The half of the 500 takes me halfway across the screen. By the way, 0.00 is up here in the left-hand corner. That's 0.00. Down here is 0.500, 345. So the graphics is kind of upside down from the graph drawing that you do in a geometry class. So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of having to do math in my head every time I want to change the size of the window or anything, watch this. Here we go. Got the graphics. What we don't have are symbolic constants. These are even more important than the symbolic constants that we had that were lists. SYMBOLIC I'm a horrible typer in the dark. It's even worse. Watch this. Width equals 500. Height equals 345. So now I don't need any cryptic, mysterious numbers. I can put in very useful looking symbolic constant names that tell me exactly what those represent. The width is the first thing I need to send in. The height is the second thing I need to send in. Now, you want to adjust your answer? How would I put a point right smack in the middle of the screen if it's width wide and height high? What's the first coordinate going to be if I want to go halfway across the screen? Exactly right. Width divided by 2. And what's the height going to be? Height divided by 2. Does everybody see that that's what's going to happen there? Look how much the symbolic constants made this stuff self-explanatory. This says we want a graphics window that's width wide and height high, and this says we want to go halfway across and halfway down to draw the point. We don't have to try to figure out what on earth those cryptic looking numbers, mysterious looking numbers mean. Or so I claim. Let's see if they'll even run. Run module. There's the point right smack in the middle. There's the circle. That is so ridiculously tiny. Let's say, while this is on the screen here, let's say that I want that circle to be the height of the circle. I don't think that's an official term, but let's say we want the height of the circle to be half of the height of the entire window here. How could I do that? How could I make this circle bigger so that it's half as tall? If it's half as tall, let's do a little bit of math in our heads. If it's half as tall as the entire window, then how much does the radius need to be? Half as tall?
Like it's a quarter.
A quarter. A quarter. Divided by 4. And where will that go? That replaces the 10. So now, here's what we call parameterizing it. I'm not going to type in a specific number. I'm going to say height divided by 4. So now, look at this. There's almost no numbers left in my code at all. Divide by 2 when I want to get a half. Divide by 4 when I want to get a quarter. But here's a huge advantage to that. When I run this, there's the point. There's the circle. And that circle is half as tall as the graphics window. Now, that's not the advantage that I was talking about. Here's the advantage. I don't like 500. I'm getting tired of such a small window, so I'm going to make that 700. And height and 345, I'm going to make it 543. All I got to do is change those two symbolic constants, and all the rest of this stuff will adjust itself automatically. I'll have a new window that's got the new width and height, and that point will still be right smack in the middle because the point coordinates are parameterized on the width and the height. And then it will still be half as tall as the screen, as the window. I say all this as if it's fact. I don't know. I hope. There it is. The point is still right smack in the middle, even though the window is not even proportionally the same anymore. I made it more tall than I did more wide, and the point is still right smack in the middle. Does everybody see the advantage of using symbolic constants there instead of having to figure out those numbers every time? Okay, let's get busy with it. That point, I don't know, for some reason that point is just annoying me, so I don't think I'm going to draw the point anymore. Mental note, get rid of drawing the point. I want the circle thicker because that skinny little outline, that's just not very satisfying to me. So let's see, I got to get rid of this. Draw the point in the window? Nah, we don't want to draw you anymore. Bye. Bye-bye. Whoops. There. Now then, draw the circle. And let's see the circle methods. We made one with a point and a radius. We've seen how to do that, and I do not like their example. I like my example a lot better, where I've got a variable name for the point and the parameterized radius. Yes, much better. Get center returns a point object that tells me where the center is. I already know where the center is because I've already made the point object for that. Get radius, I already know that as well. Get P1, get P2. I don't even know what all that stuff is. But I don't see any way to make it thicker. Does anybody have any suggestions? Maybe they don't have a way to make a circle thicker. Should maybe we look at rectangle methods or oval methods? Maybe circle's a special case of an oval. Look in the graphics object. Anything that you see for a graphics object here is also available on circles by inheritance. Circle inherits from graphics object. So I can do set fill, mental note. I can set a color. Set outline. Well, that just sets the color. Set width. That has some promise. Sets the width for the outline of an object to the number of pixels. Does not work for point. Set width 3. So I want to set the width of the circle. That was a David Bowie song, width of a circle. Draw. So circle dot set width. How wide? I just put 20. I could parameterize that, but I'll make it 20 and see what that looks like. Trial and error. That's pretty wide. That's much bolder. That's much easier to see. Now, even though that worked, I'm a little surprised that it did work. That's not in general a good idea. In general, what you want to do is you go to your little workshop behind the scenes, you set up your graphics object, your circle, you make it as wide as you want, you set the color and all that stuff, and then you draw it. It's just more predictable what your output's going to be that way. In other words, I, following rules of good programming and style, should have put this before. Now, I can't put it before I make the circle. I got to make the circle wider after it exists. Oh dear. But this is just much better style. Is like I said, it's much more predictable what you're going to get in the output. This makes a point to be the center of the circle. This makes the circle around that point. It sets the width of the circle, and I draw it, and then I wait for the mouse click. Now, let's see what happens. Run. It's probably not going to look any different. Nope, looks the same. But there it is. There's the circle. Now then, that is not the art that I want to see. This is Friday. Everybody loves the sunrise on Friday. So here's my plan. I want this to represent the sun, and I want to do a sunrise where I just see the top half of the sun down here on the bottom. And I want the inside of it to be yellow and the outside of it to be red. Can y'all remember all that? I want it down at the bottom. I'm seriously asking because I might not remember all that. I want the inside to be yellow, the outside to be red, and still be thick like that. So the thick is good. I guess I'll just go ahead and set the colors. And that's GraphWin object. There's plot. No, that's just one little point. Set background. Set the window background to a different color. I'm looking in the wrong place. This is the window. That's the whiteboard itself. This is what I want. Graphics objects. Set fill. There we go. And they said set fill red. I hope they know what yellow means, but there's one way to find out. After I have a circle, after I have the circle, I'm going to make it pause and let me admire that before I go another step. So I'm going to say w.getMouse. Wherever you want to stop it and see what you've done before it moves on, you can just do that. And I'm not going to comment those every line. We now know what that does. Now, there. Color it yellow for the sun. Circle, and I've forgotten already. Holy moly. Circle is a graphics object and set fill. Some object. Playing the role of some object in this example will be our circle. Circle, set fill to yellow. Yellow, yellow. Oh, let's see if it, like mellow yellow. Let's see if it knows what that means. And after I do that, well, you know what? It's not going to do any good to pause up here unless I draw it first. So I'll do the draw and pause, circle. I should have someone up here and I just dictate the typing. Draw, I won't make that mistake again. Draw W. Now, that makes a circle, it should draw it and it should get mouse. This should change it to yellow, and then it's already drawn. So I think I just got to do w.getMouse. I know I'm violating my principle of do all the stuff first and then draw it, but I want to see this stuff happen incrementally. Then I'll make it wider, and then I'll pause again. So this should happen in steps instead of just all at one time. But that lets me know whether or not I'm using these individual methods on my circle object correctly. And it's already drawn. I might not need that. Let me see if I can get away without that. All kinds of experimentation going on here this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know what I got anymore. Let me just run it and see what happens. There's the circle. What should happen? Does anybody remember what should happen after the first click? It should crash. Yeah, oh, I knew better than that. Unknown color name yellow. Back to the drawing board. How about yellow spelled correctly? Run module. Click. We're getting closer. That's after the sunrise. That's after it's already way up in the middle of the sky. Click. Made it thicker. It's doing the stuff just like I wanted, incrementally. And there it's done. Okay. So I got 2 get mice in a row. So I don't think I need cleaning this up. I don't think I need any of that anymore. It worked fine without drawing it again. So make the circle wider. Let's do it after I make it wider. Let's see if we can color the outline. I said red, right? Circle that something. Back to the, you'll notice I'm using the documentation a lot. I don't have this library memorized by any stretch of the imagination. I do go back and forth. Now you probably have your paper copy next to you. You can open this and have the PDF file open. I emailed that to you as well. But I use the paper copy when I'm not sitting here in the dark because I've got that all marked up with things that I use regularly, and it's a lot easier to find them. Graphics objects. Set outline, that's what I want. Set outline color, that's the outline color. They use yellow. I've got them backwards. I'm going to use red for the outline. Color the outline red. Circle dot set outline red. We got it. Run module. Click, 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 crash. What's wrong with this picture? Red is not defined. They use it in their example. Why can't I use it? If you don't put quotes, what does it think red is? Thinks it's a variable. You actually can. I could say, now this would be really contorted and ugly. I could say red without quotes. I could say this, but I'm going to say it and then get rid of it. Red equals red. Oh, look. What on earth is going on here? Now I've got a string variable red that's equal to the string red. And oh, that's so complicated now. I'm sorry I typed it in. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think this will work, even though there's no point and it's ugly. Run module. Click, click. Well, I think it worked. I saw a flash of red. How come we didn't get to see it? I'll fix it while you're thinking about it. There's no need for a variable for that in this case. So let's fix it. Now will we get to see it a little better, a little longer? Run module. Like all the other stuff in Python. It was red. I saw it, but I didn't make it go away. It went away by itself. What did I leave out? The get mouse. Any place you want it to stop before it moves on, even at the very end of the program, you got to do the get mouse thing. There. Now then, almost there. Click, click, click. That is beautiful. That is art. But that is a full-blown sun in the middle of the sky, and I want it way down here. That'll be our last piece for the demo. Make that into a sunrise. So how could we do that? If it's the sunrise, think of this window right here, my editor window again. Think of that as a graphics window. If I want a broad Friday sunrise at the bottom of the middle of the screen, then the center point needs to be down here, right? Where you see the cursor. What are the coordinates at that point? How far over do I go? Width divided by 2. So that's not going to change. How far down the window do I go? The entire height instead of just height divided by 2. Do you see that that's going to be the case? Because 0, 0 is up here. So I've got to go half the width over and then the entire height down to the bottom. And I'm hoping that even if I've almost drawn it off the screen, that it will still do it and not crash. I don't want to see any more red paragraphs of death. We'll see. Run module. Oh, yes, did. That experiment worked the first time. Yeah, I'm going to have to quit while I'm ahead. Click, yellow sun, click, bold outline, click, red. There we are. There is our Friday sunrise. Who has a question about any part of that? Or anything else you want me to try while we've got both the graphics reference here at our fingertips and this garbage little program that we just dump stuff in and try it and see if it works. Just for one, let's make it the grand finale. I'll make this 1200 wide. I'll see if that even fits on the screen. And 700 tall. Why would I want to do that? Well, again, I'm proving that symbolic constants can make your life much easier. If you set those at the top, then you use those. Notice, throughout the run of this program, those are treated as constants. We use their values, but you will never see in this program a line, an assignment statement says width equals, and then set it to something else. The capital letters mean hands off. You can use it. You can use it as an expression. You can divide it by 4 as long as you don't change the value. You can divide it by 2 as long as you don't change the value. But when you change the value, then everything is going to mess up. Run module. Well, yeah, that's almost too big. It is too big to fit on the screen. Sorry about that. Click, click, click. A sunrise off the bottom of the screen, but that's my fault. I can't leave it like, I'm sorry. You can think about what questions you might want to ask when I make that a little shorter. I don't want to end it with a logic error like that. Is this? Yeah, that'll fit. There. There. What could be better? Who has a question about my little circle that's not so little anymore? Example 4.py. This will be on Canvas. I don't think I'll email this out, but this will be on Canvas. The other class will have a different demo. So this, of course, matches the demo that you will have, and they'll have a different program that matches the demo that I do for them. I didn't want to confuse things any more than necessary. Any question about any of this? Our lab next week will be to do graphics stuff. So you might want to review the video, maybe play at double speed or something so it's not so long and boring, and take a look at this code before the lab next week. Question? Do you have a question?
It was if it was going to be on the test or the lab. So.
All of this stuff, I'll tell you what, all this business about what you can do with circles and what you can do with points and all that, that's not on there. But I do want you to be familiar with those general terms related to object-oriented programming, what inheritance means, what implications it has for the objects. In other words, we had like, I don't know, it was 1 or 2 class periods on nothing but terminology about object-oriented programming and abstract data types and all that stuff. Do review those because that could easily, I think, find its way into a multiple choice question or two. But the code trace will be just plain Python without any graphics. And most of the test will be stuff that we got to before we got into graphics and OOP. There won't be any, I can say it this way, if I can talk at all. There won't be any graphics stuff on there, but there could very well be object-oriented programming things on there. The general terms and ideas and so on. Is that a satisfactory answer? Okay. Any other questions? I'll see you next week, and I'm going to try to close off this video. Bye.